Shalom Aleichem Rabotai. Mishnah Yomi continues in the fifth parak of Shabbos, Mishnah Bet. Now we're talking about items that are considered clothing or accessories to an animal that an animal could go out with them attached into Rishut Rabim, a public domain on Shabbat, and there's no issue of having your animal carry things in the Rishut Rabim or from one Rishut to another Rishut using Hotzah. So Mishnah Bet, Hamor Yotze b'mardat. A donkey can go out with his blanket, Bizmon shehi kishura lo, as long as it was tied on before Shabbos. If it wasn't tied on, it might fall off the donkey, and you're going to have to carry it or put it back on. Donkeys apparently run cold. We can't tie it on Shabbos, even using a nice bow like our shoelaces, because you'd end up leaning on the animal. We can't lean on the animals on Shabbos. Mishnah continues, Zecharim, males, as in male sheep, Yotzin levuvin, they can go out. Levuvin is a heart-shaped pouch that blocks their avar zachar, blocks their reproductive organ, so they don't go and reproduce with the females. Apparently, he's trying to avoid that. It's the opposite of Yaakov Avinu in Vayetze. Rechelot, the ewes, the female sheep, yotzot shechuzot, they can go out shechuz. Now, shechuz means their tail is tied up, like they would tie the tail in a position so that it was easier for the males to reproduce with them. So perhaps they learned this from Yaakov Avinu. Kivulot, they could go with kavul. That's the opposite. Rosa, that's the tail tied down. So maybe you could do that to Lavan's sheep. I mean, if it's in the don't want to have a breach of contract between Yaakov and Lavan. Or kivulnot. Kivulnot is they have a covering tied all over them so that the wool stays nice and white, so the sheep don't get dirty at all. They would tie the covering on right away, so you don't have any dirt in your wool, and everything can be dyed in the wool later on and look beautiful. Ha'izim, and the goats, yotzot surot, they can go with them tied up. So they would tie up the dadim, the milk glands of the goats, so that they wouldn't be dripping. Rabbi Yossi Oser Bekulim. Rabbi Yossi says all of these are burdens, are things carried by an animal. Chutzmin harachelin hakivunot, except for the sheep that are wrapped up entirely to keep the wool very clean. He says that's like clothing, like a garment. Rabbi Huda Omer, Izim yotzet surot liyabesh. He says goats can go out if they've wrapped up their dadim to dry them out, so they stop producing milk. Avolo lecholov, but not with a bag or a receptacle underneath them to catch the dripping milk. We can understand that the former is to help the goat to get where it needs to be in life, and the latter is to catch the milk. It's like a kli, like an accessory, and like a burden on Shabbos. Good. Mishnah Gimel. Uvema, and with what? Eina yotze, can your animal not go out in your Shus Rabim and Shabbos? Let's say gamol bim tultelet. A camel cannot go out with a piece of cloth tied onto the tail, some sort of identification, says the Bartanura. If you tie some red string around your camel's tail, you can find them in the market where there's a bunch of camels wandering around. This is why you can have distinctive tags on your luggage to find it faster at the airport. This is the makor for that in Shas. The Mishnah continues, lo akod v'lo ragul, and not with its leg bent or not its leg tied. So camels sometimes run away, so if you tie its leg in a bent position, 1 out of 4 legs, it slows it down, it can't run away, you'll be able to catch it. Or with the one leg tied to another, in a manner it can still walk, but it takes shorter steps. Ken sharkal behemot, and so too other animals with the same matzav. Lo yikshur gemolim ze b'zev yimshech. You shouldn't tie your camels one to another and then lead them with the lines. Avol machnis chavolim l'toch yado v'yimshech. But you could put all of the leads in your hand, and you're pulling. You basically have in your hand one line to each animal, instead of one animal tied to the next animal. But don't wrap them around your hands. Now, the wrapping around your hands doesn't have anything to do with Shabbos. It has to do with shatnez, that it's possible that some of the ropes contain linen, some of them contain wool, and if you're wrapping them all together, they get intermingled and they get kind of wrapped up, and then you're warming up your hand with shatnez. So don't try that at home, kids. Shkoyach Rabosai, sei gesund.